So this is titled Mango Mangue, which is the title of a Celia Cruz song, for those of you who know who Celia Cruz is. And it starts in Atiquizaya, El Salvador, 1972, Atiquizaya, El Salvador, 1972. And I'm speaking here about my family, my immediate family. Camila is my sister. I only have one, my younger sister. The mango tree in our courtyard was a multifaceted creature. It provided us luscious shade, nourished us, offered us joy, and operated as a kind of living calendar, marking our days. A queen of a tree. It had a wide, rich canopy that every year yielded hundreds and hundreds of delicious mangoes. Mangoes enough for us, our neighbors, for the bats, birds, and bees that visited, and for all the insects who feasted on the fallen fruit that each morning appeared on the ground for the duration of the mango season. With such abundance harvest, no one in their right mind stooped so low as to eat a mango with a crack or nick on its skin. Only perfect fruit would do. And to ensure this, Papa, 30 years old, trim and fit, scaled up the robust trunk often to select the choicest mangoes for us to eat. In tropical El Salvador, snow exists in books and television. But in January, when the petite white blooms of the ubiquitous mangoes open up and the wind rustles branches, petals loosen and flutter like snow flurries. By March, the flowers give way to tight, small, crunchy green mangoes, or tetelques, so named because of the astringent aftertaste of the sap running through them. By late April, we cut the first almost ripe fruit. Some years, this happens just in time for Holy Week, adding juicy orange mango glory to the otherwise somber commemorations of Jesus' death and resurrection. As the mango season wore on, we grew accustomed to the intermittent plop, plop of fruit falling off laden branches. If you want to touch the sky, then you must master the secret of climbing trees, Papa would say, and deftly prove it. Barefoot, his pants rolled up to his ankles, a matata across his right shoulder, he ascended and harvested unblemished fruit from the uppermost branches of our mango tree. Mami, Camila, and I shouted while he picked, pulled, and plucked until the matata bulged with fruit. Más arriba, a la derecha, ese sí, ese no. We sat in the covered corridor that faced the courtyard and devoured mangoes to our heart's content and our stomach's displeasure. We ate the entire fruit, skin and flesh, letting bitter and sweet, soft and coarse find harmony in the silks of our mouths. We feasted, and the regal tree surveyed the orderly space between its branches, the figs, the miniature orange trees, the crotons and blooming roses that Papa tended. After feasting on ripe fruit, we washed off the seeds clear of excess pulp and turned them into dolls. We filled up bowls of water and watched the seeds expand as their fibers loosened, their beard-like white fibers undulating in soft waves like the tresses of a floating mermaid. We named each seed Maritza, Mariana, Cristina, and combed their long hair in all sorts of ways, pointy and upward, broad and sideways, tightly along their bodies. Camila and I enjoyed a childhood where the cadence of our days was marked by the song and rhythm of the earth. The walls of our house, its roof, and the tall fence that surrounded it were literally made of earth. Our house was cool even on hot days because of its clay-tiled roof and thick adobe walls. On nights when rain fell, the entire house smelled faintly of baked earth. Sitting in the courtyard with dirt up to our elbows, Camila and I made tortitas, packing wet earth in the thin bottle caps we collected, surrounded by the luxurious sight and smell of the colorful roses Papa assiduously tended. Camilla was quick in life, with obsidian eyes that burned and sparkled and brightened her face like a small sun, no matter what the time of day. She acquired new words with alacrity, especially bad ones, and deployed them with searing accuracy. In that respect, she was our abuela's namesake, the regal older woman and the charming granddaughter, dueled life under the name's umbrella, heirs of a long line of fierce and resolute female ancestors. Unlike Abuela, Camilla had a birthmark just above her right lip that accentuated her face in a most pleasing way whenever she smiled, prompting strangers upon meeting her for the first time to ask, "Me lo regalas?" She was used to the question and was adept at letting folks who asked down easy. No, she was not about to give away any part of her body, especially not her prized birthmark. Camilla didn't walk around with her head in the clouds or dwell too long on things like I did. Growing up, she was smaller in stature, but in many ways, she was my protector. Pity the kid who dared slight me in any way, because my sister's wrath would soon follow, a kind of pounding, torrential rain. It was not pleasant. I had been plenty deluged by her tongue unleashing. When Camilla was sun, I was moon, and the two of us knew how to circumnavigate the universe of our household. We marked the sky, stirred the earth, and each day complemented each other. On hot afternoons, relishing the quiet siesta hour and taking advantage of the coolness of the living room, Papa played his classical music records and burrowed deeply into one of his many books. Once the slow and, to me, mournful music filled the living room, the air became thick and sticky, like masa for tortillas. The music spilled into the corridor, crossed the courtyard, spreading faint tendrils around the trunks of all the trees that thrived in our backyard, and I bolted as far away from the record player as I could, through the courtyard, past the vegetable garden and the fruiting trees, all the way to the tapial in the back, where the music had the hardest time reaching me. Papa shared his love freely only with two things: his books and his garden. He did not need companions for those tasks. He lived them alone. Sometimes I scooted up to him while he was busily pruning, transplanting, or grafting in his rose garden. At those moments, his thin face was focused and relaxed, and smiles were easy to come by. I liked the way his thin body felt loose and the way his voice was generous and soft at those moments. I wished more than anything that by keeping close to him, some of the love he poured into his plants would spill onto me. Where my father was taciturn and melancholic, my mother was gregarious and vivacious. For him, classical music was great, but for her, Celia Cruz was better. The sixth child of a family of 10, Mammy relished company and thrived in group settings. She was prone to dancing when the song she liked came on the radio. At Christmas time, with her sisters and brothers, nieces and nephews, the dancing went on for hours. Papa joined her on these occasions, and my heart swelled watching them holding each other close, relishing their bodies, keeping rhythm. They were happy together, and I was happy to be their daughter. Mommy, a year younger than Papa, arrived in Atiquizaya when she married Papa, but she never quite jived with the simpler life of the small town. Adobe walls, the lack of potable water in the houses, the absence of sewage system, the cobblestone streets so unfriendly to heels, all this grated on her. She did not appreciate the church's hold on peoples and folks' adherence to old beliefs and what she called superstitions. Her wish had always been to return to the busier rhythms of Santa Ana, the second largest in the country, where her own mother and sister lived. Mami read Vanidades and Buen Hogar, fashion and style magazines unheard of in our barrio. Whenever she prepared one of the suggested recipes, and if she was happy with the results, she clipped and pasted it in a special recipe journal she kept. Flipping through the pages of her magazines, I'd want her to follow the suggestions offered. Paint walls that way, sew curtains this way, macrame and such and such. I'd catch excitement about possible embellishments to our house, and then I realized that none of the suggestions applied to us. None, no one I knew lived or ate as depicted in those magazines. The women I knew did not wear trousers and often wore an apron with white pockets over their dresses. People in the neighborhood slaughtered chickens in their backyards, and once in a blue moon, maybe a young pig for a special occasion. No one bought meat from a supermarket shelf. When I lived in Atikisaya, washing was done entirely by hand, and in some houses, ironing was still a matter of an actual iron with burning coals. Oxen pulling cars share the road with cars and buses around town. Nothing in the pages of any magazine I ever came across reflected the reality of our lives. Things were as they were, imperfect. We clustered around the routines that held our lives together and assumed that our relationships with each other would continue as they always had been. The togetherness of our days entwined with our joys, our frustrations, our hopes, and our lack. There was the lack of potable water, the sight of men wasted on cheap rum, wasting in their joblessness, the stink of shit and garbage in the gutters in men's eyes, street dogs scratched behind their ears and their bellies screamed with thirst and hunger, and flies swooped down on our food the moment our hand rested a second too long in our mouths. But the mountains singing in perfect indigo were on our side. Rain for the corn and bean harvest came punctually each May, and the shortcuts and networks of assistance we cobbled up nourished and sustained us. Much of what I know about the world, the seen and unseen of it, its mystery and spiritual dimension, comes from my abuela. As soon as I was of age, which is to say, as soon as I could speak and walk, she took me under her wing and taught me the things she thought I needed to carry to navigate life. She taught me how to cross myself. Por la señal de la Santa Cruz, she said, and I quickly scrambled after her, repeating her words and clumsily copying her hand, making the sign of the cross. She helped me along, placing my thumb over my index finger to form a cross, and guided me, pausing first over my forehead, then over my cheeks, then to navel and shoulders, finishing on my lips. Kiss the cross, she'd say, and I kissed it and uttered a reverent amen. My abuela was kind to me, her first grandchild, but patient was not abuela's virtue. By necessity, she was a woman of swift action. Widowed in her early 20s, determination, grit, and an irascible temper exemplified the breadth of her emotional repertoire. In a fraction of a second, she went from laughing heartily to reaching perilous levels of anger. One of her searing and creatively strung list of insults could flat out shake down all the leaves of a mango tree, leaving bare branches with birds cowering under the weight of her lexicon. Lucky for me, she loved me, her oldest grandchild, and she worked hard to pass along the array of recipes, amulets, prayers, and rituals known to her so that I may live a long and fruitful life under the winning patronage of all the saints and angels in heaven. Acceptance of mystery was a cornerstone for my abuela believes. Mystery connected her to something bigger, brighter, kinder than the material circumstances under which she lived. Our senses could only take us so far. Reality could not be gauged by perceived evidence alone. Just because you couldn't see something didn't mean it was not real. For her, the unseen world ordered and balanced the visible one. My abuela's conviction that mystery and magic existed was sewn into her marrow. The years I spent at her side in the open-air kitchen where she prepared candies for a living ensured that it was sewn into mine. For my part, I relished Abuela's company, her sayings, superstitions, and above all, her spiritual teaching. I wished nothing more ardently than to make my Holy Communion. I yearned to have a picture of myself in the long white dress, a diadem of sparkling beads resting on my head, and gloved hands holding a candle like my friends and cousins had in their living rooms. For me, the ceremony involved in making a primera comunión was a kind of initiation into the secret world of which my abuela was part. The world of ritual, of reverence, the mystery of the unknown, the existence of God, being in a dark, quiet space with trace smells of incense was pure wonder and magic to me. The realm of spirit pulled me hard. My abuela adored and venerated this unseen realm. She knew its rituals, she practiced them without reservation, and she welcomed me into her world. She shared her life with me. She shared all of her with me, and this has made all the difference. To the naked eye of my childhood, the civil war, which was to explode in less than a decade, was nowhere visible. But its spores were slowly and silently finding purchase in the soil under our feet. I don't think anyone at the time could yet point a finger at it, but explode it did, and when it came, it stomped and assailed cities and countryside equally. It wounded young and old, it killed rich and poor. Its nefarious hands left nothing untouched. Each night, before she went to bed, Abuela left a glass of water next to her bed, urged me to do the same. Siempre deja un vaso de agua al lado de tu cama, she'd say. Our souls roam free at night, she explained. The filled glass ensures they will not go thirsty in the time of darkness. The glass and its liquid also served as a beacon, a signpost for the soul to find our bodies after their nightly meanders. She spoke these things with absolute certainty, and her story simultaneously fascinated and terrified me. I trembled, imagining my soul lost out in the world, unable to find its way back into my body, which in a way is precisely what happened when the war came. Thank you.